Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, councillors and staff. Declare the meeting open at 6 o'clock, the special council meeting of the Shire of Capel on the 17th of June 2026. Declaration and announcement of visitors. There's no visitors that have been remarked to us, but what I will do is open with an acknowledgement to country. We wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we're meeting on, the Wandandi people. We wish to acknowledge and respect their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. We pay our respects to all members of the Aboriginal communities and their culture, to the elders past and present, their descendants who are with us today and those who will follow in their footsteps. Item 2, record of attendance, apologies, leave of absence. We have apologies from Councillor Rosina Mogg, Councillor Sebastian Ciano and Councillor Emily Montgomery, and Acting Director, Community Planning and Development, Isabel Fry. We now move to acknowledging the members in the gallery and we go to public question time. We've got a big agenda on questions. We will endeavour to answer them in the most comprehensive way we can, but if they are becoming repetitive, in other words, if several other questions have already asked that question, we may just move on and acknowledge that it's the same question and has been responded to, but we'll do the best we can collectively. The first question is from Glenn Bone of Jalora. Look, before I go on, I might add that for your edification, the Local Government Act can invite or does allow the presiding member to limit the questions to 2 minutes each and a limit of 2, and allows the presiding member to restrict the time for questions to a maximum of 15 minutes. Now, clearly, we're not going to do that because we want to give you the opportunity to express your views, and council wants to take note of them. But bear in mind, we are indulging you to that extent and wanting to engage in community consultation. We're not trying to hold you out or prohibit you from expressing your views. But please do it courteously and try and move the agenda along. And I thank you for your attendance to this. Thank you. First question, Glenn Bone. Mr. Bone is not in attendance apparently, and he's not delegated anyone to speak, so I'll read out the question. Question 1, specific area rating. It is noted that in P30 of the agenda that the special council meeting on the 10th of June 26, there is a proposed GRV rate in the dollar of 0.008000. Is it intended that there be a capped maximum lot contribution in the 26-27? If so, what is it? The reply to the answer to that is there's no cap proposed on the per lot contribution. Question 2, specified area rating. In regard to the specified area rating proposal, please supply the following figures. The 1st of July 26 opening balance, and I'll answer them in as he's asked them. It was $337,186. The 2027 special area rating income. Rating income from that area was proposed to be $803,338. Investment income is $15,701. Proposed expenditure is $1 million. I'm sorry, this says $1,066,394. Right. Okay. The proposed expenditure $1,066,394. 30th of June 27 closing balance $89,831. The next question comes from Walter Cook of Gwendanup. Is Walter here this evening? Thank you, Walter. Could you state your name and where your location is, please?
Okay, my name is Walter Cook and I live in Gwendanup. For those who don't know where Gwendanup is, it's 4K south of Boyanup.
Street address?
Pardon?
Street address? The street address, please.
Sorry, yeah. 10 Dempster Street in Gwendanup.
Thank you.
Okay, so I've taken a little bit out of somebody's question from last week because it pertains to the same thing and saved me rewriting the same information.
Just go ahead.
All right.
Just go ahead and we'll try and deal with it as best we can. collectively.
Yeah, well, as a Gwinnup resident, I'm also required to self-fund and maintain essential services and infrastructure, including private water supply, gas supply, on-site wastewater treatment, private drainage and associated maintenance and replacement costs. In addition, I am responsible for maintaining extensive fire breaks and vegetation management requirements across the large property. It's significant ongoing cost and effort. I also bear the cost that are inherent to managing a rural property.
Mr. Cook, that's actually not in your questions.
No, no.
But can you please just stick to the questions, please?
All right. All right, well, my first question in the explanation of rates, it states the minimum reflects the level of services and infrastructure supplied to ratepayers in this category. What are these services and infrastructure?
Mick? I'm sorry, Acting Director of Assets.
Through you, Mr Chair, and thank you for your question, Mr Cook. The Shire provides a range of services across animals and pets, cemeteries, fire and emergencies, health and environment, libraries, rates and payments, waste and recycling. There's a full list of the Shire's services on the Shire's website. The Shire also provides infrastructure for the community use of essential functions, including buildings, community centres and libraries, recreational centres, roads, stormwater, drainage, paths and parks. The infrastructure is managed and maintained as part of the Capital Works program, maintenance schedules and associated asset management plans.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Okay, with the proposed rate rise, what will we get to justified in Gwinnup?
The rate rise in the dollar proposed this evening is 6%.
Yeah, but what will we get?
Well, I think that was answered in the previous question.
Yeah,
Now,
the reason I ask
look, I'm not going to dwell on it now, but I will make a brief comment, and I'll repeat it again later this evening. Rates are not a fee for service. Rates are a tax that supplies and provides the community amenity for the entire Shire, and that's universal throughout Australia. It's not unique to Capel.
Well, the reason I asked is because I've lived in Gwinnup for 20 years, and to access my place I go on a gravel track, which has not been touched in 20 years.
Well, I think we can address that question in its specifics, and perhaps it does need to be amended or addressed. But in broad terms, we need to stick to the questions that we can answer. And we've answered what you've asked, I believe. Would you like to move on to your next question?
That's the only questions I had.
Thank you for your attention and your presentation. Glenys Malatesta from Jallura.
Chair, Glenys sent your apologies and had asked you to repeat the question.
Sure. You can or I can, whatever you prefer.
You asked me to, so I'm happy to. My name is Russell Dawson, 15 Watkins Road in Jallura. I'm reading these questions on behalf of Glenys Malatesta, 229 Yolinda Drive, Jallura. Question 1. All the 1 acre blocks are already being charged at a residential rate, so why don't they have green waste bins and green waste pickup like Stirling and Capel also buoyant up?
You might have missed the question.
Sorry, that's what
I'm happy
in front of
to
me.
move on, but I've got another one here. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah.
Okay. The question 1 on our list, which is our running sheet, being residential in the rate strategy, does it give us permission to subdivide our 5 acre properties? Acting Director, Corporate and Customer Relations, would like to answer that.
Thank you through the chair, and thank you, Glenys, for your question. The rating strategy does not alter the zoning pursuant to local planning scheme number 8. It instead proposes the rate for the specific zone. The potential for subdivision is guided by the requirements of the local planning scheme, so it's not guided by the rates.
Thank you. And now your question 2. Would you like to read it?
Through the chair, the questions I've got here, that's a totally different question to what I've been given. This was emailed Saturday, 13th of June, by the looks of it. Can we confirm that?
Yeah, those questions are there. That was the one that was missed from last meeting.
I beg your pardon. Righto. Question 2. Are Jalora Stratham saving you money by not having green waste bins? Is that what you have as question 2?
No, we don't, but we'll take it and try and deal with it to move on.
Okay. Okay, I've got a bit of an understanding of what's going on now. That the question you previously answered was from her from last week, from the last meeting. So
look, for the clarity, would you just restate the question you wish to ask?
yes. All 1 acre blocks are already being charged as a residential rate, so why don't they have green waste bins and green waste pickup like Stirling and Capel also buoyant up?
Acting Director, Infrastructure Management.
Through you,
McCarthy.
Mr President, and thank you for your question. The Jalora and Stratham residents currently operate under a different waste service model to other residential properties. Historically, a FOGO service has not been provided to these areas due to the existing service arrangements, collection logistics and the level of service adopted by council for those localities. As residents are not currently charged for a 3-bin service, they are not paying for a service they do not receive, with the waste charge applied reflecting the 2-bin service arrangement. Any future consideration of extending a FOGO service to Jalora and Stratham would be subject to a council assessment, cost analysis and community consultation.
Thank you. Your next question.
I think you've pretty much answered this question by the answer to that question. The question is, are Jalora Stratham saving you money by not having green waste bins?
No.
No. Next question, will the Shire run a survey and see how many residents from Jalora, Stratham and Dalyella want to move under Bunbury Shire?
No. The Shire does not support any townside amalgamation with the City of Bunbury and will not be funding a survey.
Next question, will the Shire run a survey on the 5 acre blocks and see how many people want streetlights, footpaths in Stratham and Jalora?
The level of data is normally contained within the feedback received from the biannual community perception surveys, with the latest survey due to be released in October, November 26, and differing forms of community consultation process related to the community strategic plan and most recently the feedback received during the integrated growth framework.
Next question, will the Shire start running council meetings in Dalyella and Jalora because that is where most of the ratepayers live?
I'll invite our Manager for Governance and Strategic Risk to answer that question.
Thanks, Mr President. Through the Chair, the Shire's existing administration office in Capel has been designed with a fit-for-purpose council chambers that allows for audio recording and live streaming of council minutes as required under section 5.23A of the Local Government Regulations. There may be some capacity to consider holding future council meetings at the new Dalyella Library and Youth Hub facility, but this would be subject to significant audiovisual technology investment to achieve the functional requirements similar to the chambers, this room, to enable the use of the meeting room or the foyer gallery for this purpose.
Next question.
Why are we pegged out in the Bunbury boundary from Bore under code 6230 backwards, yet have not merged?
Well, I don't think postcodes are relevant to potential mergers, but postcodes were historically based on mail distribution, logistics and population levels. This does not always align with changes to population levels and current district boundaries. Next question.
Do Capel Shire think it's fair that most of the Capel Shire use Bunbury infrastructures, hospitals, pubs, restaurants, cinemas, post offices and many other chains of shops and businesses, along with their road networks, and not help out with the percentage of their rating strategy?
Acting Director, Corporate and Customer Relations would like to answer that. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you through the chair and thank you for your question. Bunbury is a recognised West Australian regional centre. The provision of commercial centres such as pubs, restaurants, as examples, are based purely on the commercial decisions of the commercial proprietor. The Shire of Capel, as per the City of Bunbury, provides land opportunities for this purpose. As a regional centre, Bunbury is the home to a regional hospital, a regional prison, a regional port, and a large number of regional state government department offices and service providers that are supporting the broader southwest region. State government funding is allocated for the operation and growth of these institutions. For example, the 25-26 state budget provided $20.3 million in additional funding to the major Bunbury Regional Hospital redevelopment, bringing the total to $471.4 million. $13.8 million to commence a mental health, child and adolescent acute care and response team in Bunbury. $3.1 million to expand Housing First support homelessness services in Bunbury and surrounding suburbs for people experiencing homelessness or rough sleeping, and $40 million towards transforming Bunbury's waterfront that will complete construction of the Casuarina Harbour breakwater, bringing the total to $112 million. Some facilities provided by the City of Bunbury, such as the Bunbury Regional Entertainment Centre, are supported by a subsidy from the Shire of Capel. There are other examples of regional facilities, such as equestrian and shooting, that have a regional catchment that are located in and supported by the Shire of Capel. It is also important to recognise that a large number of local businesses in Bunbury welcome and actively seek the support and custom generated by tourists and people throughout the broader southwest region.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Planning in Capel Shire is very poor. You voted to put bore.
Look, I actually am going to pull you up on that. I'm not going to have comments. I didn't recognise this in when I had a scanning of the motion. You can use the formal words, planning in the Capel Shire, put the bore in to keep traffic off Bustle Highway, but I won't allow you to use the formal words in the middle.
Okay, I'll move on to the next part, or the next phrase of the question. You voted to put bore in to keep traffic off Bustle Highway. Now, by putting in Bunnings, you will increase the volume of traffic. Why not put Bunnings to an industrial site and make a business hub similar to what already exists in the Bunnings Centre now?
Acting Director, Infrastructure Management, Mr McCarthy.
Through you, Shire President, and thank you for your question. The Bunnings proposal was supported by a comprehensive traffic impact assessments which confirm that the road network servicing the area is sufficient in capacity for the Bunbury's proposal and future adjoining developments. A Bunnings site has been identified within Dalyellup for several years and was originally intended to be within the district centre. The proposal fits within what was ordinarily acceptable in a service commercial zone, which are characterised as being nearby residential development with high levels of road connectivity, as they are intended to directly serve the community.
Thank you. Thank you. That's the last of your questions I have here.
Yeah, on behalf of Glenys Malatesta, I thank you for your answers.
And thank you for addressing the meeting. Neil Rollinson of Jallora. Questions to be read out by the Shire President, i.e., I think that's me, as Mr Rollinson is currently away. Question 1. Look, I'm going to actually abridge this. The Shire provides two green... Oh, no, I won't. Sorry, I'll read it out. The Shire provides two green waste collections per year for urban areas only. Do the residents of these zones pay an additional fee for this service? What is the annual cost to the Shire for providing this service to urban residents? Note to Council that rural residential Zone 12 does not get this service and don't require it as we deal with our own green waste. Acting Director, Infrastructure Management, Mr McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr President. Yes, urban residents are charged $59 for 2 times green waste services and 1 times hard waste service each year, while semi-rural and rural properties are charged $25 for 1 times hard waste service. The overall cost is to provide this service is $76,000 per year.
Thank you. Next question is, what is the Shire's annual electricity expense for the provision of street lighting to the residential areas of the Shire? Note the Council note to council, rural residential gets net benefit from this service and are not requesting it to be provided. Acting Director Infrastructure Management, Mr McCarthy, please.
Through you, Shire President, the Shire's street lighting electricity cost is around $400,000 per year, noting street lights are Western Power assets, not the Shire's assets.
Question 3. We note the City of Busselton has just announced their proposed differential rates for 26-27. The proposed differential for unhosted short-term rental accommodation, formerly holiday homes, is 50.85% premium rate over standard residential. When will the council is going to request staff to produce some modelling to provide you with the revenue benefits of separately rating the 95 properties registered within Department of Energy, Mines and Industry Regulation across the Shire? Chief Executive Officer.
Thank you for your question, Shire President. The answer is, during the rating development process, Council has agreed not to pursue the modelling for a differential rate for short-term rental accommodation at this time. The number of short-term accommodations currently approved by the Shire of Capel is 37.
We thank Mr Rollinson for his questions. We will now move on to Tanya Price. Is Tanya here? From Julerup? Well, I'll read the question. Just wondering if you can provide the council proposal that will outline the timeline upgrade to services in this zone to justify the rate increase. If we are to receive mains, water, gas, street lighting, sewage, then there would not be an issue, but I can't seem to find this on your website. We have already answered this before, but I'll have a go. Residents who choose to live in the rural residential zones do through their preferred lifestyle choice, understanding that it is not the local government's responsibility to provide scheme water, sewerage, reticulated gas, public transport and the like, as these are the responsibilities of other agencies. The next question is from Shannon Lobo from Julerup. Will not be in attendance, has asked the question to be read out. I understand that the Shire faces increasing costs and must maintain financial sustainability. In our area of Julerup, there are limited footpaths, street lighting, covered bus stops, no water, sewage, green waste and gas services. Given these limitations, I would appreciate clarification. This actually repeated the previous question, but the answer is slightly different, so we'll proceed. What specific additional costs are driving the increase for rural residential properties? Shire President, the CEO.
Thank you, Shire President. The original purpose of reducing the rate in the dollar for rural residential properties dates back to 2010-2011, seeing the rural residential zone purposely discounted by 12% to absorb the impact of a revaluation process which occurred in the prior year and not due to be perceived as a lack of service, given these are rural residential lifestyle blocks. The intention at the time was to apply a 12% discount with a view to realigning the residential and rural residential rates in the dollar over the following years, but this did not occur. Since 2022-23, the adopted rating strategies have been correcting this, seeing the rural residential rate align closer to the residential rate in the dollar, with the gap currently reduced from 12% to 3.3%. The 2026-27 rating strategy was initially proposed to close this gap and provide parity between the two rate zones.
Question 2. How rural residential ratepayers will directly benefit from the proposed increase? The proposed rating strategy has the same rate in the dollar, being 6% for all residential zones, including rural residential. Question 3. Whether Council has assessed the relative level of service received by rural residential properties compared with urban residential properties. The proposed rating strategy has the same rate in the dollar, being 6% for all residential zones, including rural residential. Question 4. What measures Council has considered to minimise the impact of rate increases on residents during a period of ongoing cost of living pressures? Chief Executive Officer.
Thank you for the question, Shire President. During the rate setting process, cost of living pressures on residents is considered by the administration and council. These pressures are not just isolated to residents, as the Shire absorbs cost escalations where possible to mitigate the impact to the residents. The proposed rating strategy of a 6% increase to all GRV zones is consistent with the rate increases recently published across most local governments, which confirms the financial pressures we are facing are consistent across the industry. In a bid to maintaining rate increases which are aligned to the adopted long-term financial plan, the administration and council review the forecast annual operating and capital budgets to see where savings can be made, with a desire to stabilising percentage increases across the life of the long-term financial plan.
Laura Phillips of Jallora will not be in attendance. Ask the questions could be read out. Question 1. Can Council provide a breakdown of participation across the broader integrated planning and reporting framework consultation process, including total participant numbers by locality, participant numbers from rural residential and special rural areas if recorded, the proportion of participants represented by each locality? The reply. Given the number of workshops held in the last 1 to 2 years linked to the development of all strategic documents that form the Shire's integrated planning and reporting framework, we will have to take this question on notice to gather the required workshop data. This information will be detailed in the minutes of the meeting. Question 2. Can Council also identify whether any component of the consultation process specifically sought feedback regarding differential rating categories, rural residential concessions, special rural residential concessions, the redistribution of rating burden between rating categories? If not, on what basis can the consultation outcome be relied upon as evidence of community support for the proposed differential rating change? Chief Executive Officer.
Thank you, Shire President. No recent community consultation process has specifically sought feedback from the community on the rating categories as described. The reference to feedback received from the members in the community in these residential areas has been collected from other community consultation processes, such as the Integrated Growth Framework project. Just to note, rural residential and special rural are the same differential rating category.
Thank you. Amy Nilsson from Stratham. Not in attendance. I'll read the questions. Question 1. Young families apparently want footpaths and street lights in Jallora. In spite of multiple rate rises over the years regardless of the zoning, specifically, where have the monies been spent in Jallora and Stratham to improve these suburbs? Have there been audits? Chief Executive Officer.
Thank you, Shire President. A financial external audit is conducted every year as required by the Act. The purpose and scope of a financial audit does not cover this type of review, as it's the responsibility of the local government to apportion spends based on community need and in line with the asset management plans, ensuring the Shire's infrastructure and operations is suitably maintained. You can review the proposed and historic capital work programme schedules on the Shire's website, which details where monies have or will be spent across each of the town sites. These capital work schedules are attached to the annual budget reports and published to the community prior to final annual budget adoption.
Question 2. It was planned by government to go back to Zone 12 being residential prior to 2011. Question 2. What was the rationale of this change 15 years ago? Do you think the improvement of Shire services in Zone 12 warrants rezoning back to different residential rating? If yes, why? Chief Executive Officer.
Thank you, Shire President. The former proposed rate in the dollar increase for rural residential was 9.3, and it's not a rezoning of these lots. Zone 12 or rural residential are classified as residential blocks with the local planning scheme and as such are rated on a gross rental value basis and not a UV or unimproved value. The original purpose of reducing the rate in the dollar for the raw residential properties dates back to 2010-2011, seeing the raw residential zones purposely discounted by 12% to absorb the impact of the revaluation process which occurred in the prior year and not due to a perceived lack of services given these are raw residential lifestyle blocks. The intention at the time was to apply a 12% discount with a view to realigning the residential and rural residential rates in the dollar over the following years, but this did not occur. The 2022-23, the adopted rate strategies have been correcting this, seeing the rural residential rates align closer to the residential rate in the dollar, with the gap currently reduced from 12 to 3.3%. The former proposed 2026-27 rating strategy finally proposed to finalise this gap and bring parity between the two rate zones. Thank you.
Question 3. Has the Capel Shire plans for looking at its own efficiency and costs? Chief Executive Officer.
Thank you, Shire President. A centralised payroll system across local governments would not be practical or feasible given the various enterprise agreements that exist across individual local governments that are tailored to local government banding and employer contractual obligations that link to these agreements. Resource sharing across other local governments and efficiencies are always considered. This practice is evident in the regional joint tender programmes using economies of scale to reduce contracting costs, shared use agreements on private infrastructure to lessen duplication of supported provision across the Shire's public open space, where possible, resource sharing of staff across local governments to reduce cost and promote a regional approach to working on specific projects. The Shire's Bushfire Mitigation Coordinator is an example of this resource sharing model with other local governments. Cross-boundary funding of public infrastructure such as Breck in Bunbury, again supporting the continuation of this provision for the region and the Shire's ratepayers. These are just a few examples to mention, and the Shire is continually considering ways to create efficiencies whilst not impacting service delivery.
Thank you. Now we've got a series of questions from Brian Hearn of Peppermint Grove Beach. I don't believe Brian's here this evening, so I'll endeavour to deal with them. These are questions taken on notice from the meeting on the 10th of June, 2026. Question 1. I take it that we do not know what we are paying consultants this year. So my response, forecast expenditure of consultants for 25-26 was $441,723. We are working with the current chart of accounts to better use the coding for a more exact use of the term consultant. Consultancy is mixed with general ledger codes and expenditure codes, which are results consulting costings and service contracts requiring individual analysis to extract an amount. Question 2. Is Council aware that the proposed employee cost decision will result in the plan for the future 25-35 approved by Council on August 27th, 2025, less than a year ago, will fall into deficit after the imposition of these proposed general rates to the tune of $10.254 million over the life of the plan, unless, of course, there is a substantial cut in expenditure? Chief Executive Officer.
Thank you, Shire President. The Shire's plan for the future, or long-term financial plan, will not fall into a deficit after the imposition of these proposed general rates to the tune of $10.254 million over the life of the plan. The Council are aware that by endorsing the draft annual budget, which includes the increase in employee costs, will require the expenditure considerations across the life of the long-term financial plan to be reviewed with a view to reducing expenditure or increasing revenue in other areas to maintain a fair annual rate and increase burden on residents. Councillors were presented with an overview of the 10-year outturn statement from the current long-term financial plan, which included the additional salary expenditure. The Shire's long-term financial plan is currently being finalised with a view to presenting the document to the Council in July or August.
Thank you. Question 6 apparently relates, I don't have it in front of me, but it relates to question 10 from last week's meeting. I note that 16.114 million capital works program is 67% funded by external grants. Well done to all involved with grant funding. Are councillors aware that the Shire can now only provide a miserly $1.161 million allocation of its own funds out of roads budget of $4.577 million to service its $162 million road and drainage network? Even 10 years ago, the Shire budget was able to provide more than this. Going forward, is this sustainable? Other than the capital works expenditure on page 44 of the draft budget, what other road maintenance works are planned to be undertaken in 26-27? The reply, for the 26-27 annual budget, the following amounts are proposed for funding the full roads program. Maintenance, $6.146 million, capital, $4.877 million, for a total of $11,023,000. $11,230,000, sorry. Question 7 relates to question 11 from last week's meeting. Recently, the Shire approved a revised trials program, 2 years in the making with a consultant. I note that the work cannot provide on any of the approved recommendations until a business case is prepared. What sort of information is the Shire planning to identify in its business case study for trial before any of the projects can proceed? What is the budget allocation for the trials in 26-27 budget? Will even more consultants be used to prepare the business case, or will the work be undertaken in-house? Acting Director of Corporate and Customer Relations, Jeremy O'Neill.
Thank you, through the Chair, and thank you, Mr Hearn, for your question. In terms of the overall spend for 26-27, there is, as mentioned in the question, $20,000 on an overall trails development framework, and there is also another $25,000 spent on planning works for other existing trails. The renewal and upgrade and improvement of existing trail infrastructure have been identified as the primary focus for the first 5 years of Trails Master Plan implementation. These trails are already in existence and do not require the development of a new business case. Prior to the development of a new trail, however, a business case is required, and a structured 8-stage trail development process is outlined for the development of new trails to ensure quality and consistency. This process includes an initial 5-step sequential planning stage, much of which can be undertaken in-house by our existing professional staff.
Thank you. Mr Hearn submitted 4 additional questions. Due to the detailed nature of these questions and the time limits between meetings, we will be providing a written answer to these questions in the minutes of this meeting, along with any additional questions that are taken on notice tonight. Thank you. Any questions from the floor? Please.
Hi, I'm Cara Andrew and I'm from Stratham. So my questions tonight actually relate to the issues highlighted by Brian Hearn last week, predominantly that staff costs account for over 80% of the Shire's rates revenue, and that staff turnover remains uncharacteristically high and stagnant above 36%. Given the Shire's staffing to income ratio and its inability to retain staff, has the Shire engaged with the City of Bunbury and the Bunbury Mayor to investigate cost savings and efficiencies which could be achieved for residents by merging the Capel Shire or parts thereof with the City of Bunbury?
No.
Are councillors and the CEO aware that poll provisions provided under the 1995 Local Government Act provides electors with the ability to petition the Local Government Advisory Board in regards to amalgamations?
And that's entirely your prerogative.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the floor?
My name is Jessica Firing, Elgin Road. I have questions on behalf of my mother and myself regarding our properties in Elgin and my mother's properties in Julurup. My list has grown this evening, and the first one I'd like to ask is in regard to Shannon's question. What does that mean, that answer? That the discount was to absorb valuations, then bring back into line. What does that mean?
Well, I think it means what it said, but I'll invite the CEO to elaborate if she would.
Thank you for your question, Jessica. So every 3 years, us as a local government undergo gross rental value revaluations. And we had one, I think it was go back 3 years ago, because we're actually due to have another gross rental value valuation in the next financial year. Depending on what's happening in the economy or that the house prices, the valuations either increase or they decrease. If they decrease, and when Landgate share that information, because we don't carry out that assessment, it's done by Landgate, if they increase to an extent whereby property values go through the roof, and when we load that information into our system, if we feel that the valuations or the increase in terms of what the ratepayers are going to pay for the current rate in the dollar at that time, we try and lessen it by reducing the rate in the dollar to obviously, so it obviously helps the ratepayers out. So we're reducing their rate burden effectively. And that, go back to 2009, which is when the valuation was carried out, but in 2010, 2011, when the valuation hit the books, when the rate notices went out, the 12% discount was applied to the rate notices to reduce the burden, obviously on those residents. And then when I look back through the papers at the time, the emphasis was on reducing at that time, but then realigning it back to the residential rate, because prior to that, residents that were in special rural, which was then special rural under the local planning scheme, which is now rural residential, and the residential were on the same rate in the dollar. And so I think the premise was to realign it after that time, but it never occurred.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
My next question is in regards to the rural zoning multiplier for the rates. Now, I have put significant effort into researching this in the last week, and I cannot come up with any other numbers, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But the multiplier for last year's rates was 0.005320. The upcoming proposed multiplier is 0.05115. That's lower. How does that then look as an rate increase on our rates?
I'll invite the CEO to answer that.
Thank you, through the Shire President. So we're on a differential rate structure, and we have the gross rental value and the unimproved value. So your gross rental value captures your residents, your commercials, your rural residentials, and then your UV captures your pure UV commercial and UV lots. They're rated very differently because the land values are very, very different. And every year, the UV undergoes an annual revaluation, unlike the GRV, which is every 3 years. So this year, when we received the Landgate information back, the UV lots, on average, increased by about 10.5%. So again, a similar situation, which is what happened.
Pricing has increased it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The answer comes through.
Yeah, so the land price increased, and similar to what we did with the rural residential or the special rural as was then back in 2009 or 2010, 2011, we've reduced the UV to absorb some of the increase of that 10.5. But it actually means the UV has increased by 6.5% because we haven't discounted it by 10.5%.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Did you have any more questions?
I have a very scribbly list. I'm so sorry.
I beg your pardon?
My list is incredibly scribbly. My
do the
mother
best you
has
can.
asked me to ask at what point were these rate increases discussed publicly for the first time?
I'll invite the CEO to answer that again, please.
Thank you. So the process we're going through, this is the consultation we're going through right now. So the officer's recommendation in the report tonight, albeit it sort of talks to we're adopting the draft annual budget, but the premise behind what we're seeking is the rating table that's contained within the particulars. And in the attachment, you'll see a document called the Notice of Intention to Levy Differential Rates, and that's the rate table that notes all of the differential rate zones in there. So what will happen if council endorse that tonight? It'll be advertised for a period of 21 days. And then during that period, residents can provide a submission saying whether they agree to it or they oppose it. All of those submissions, which is the consultation period you're referring to, are then collected and put into a submission table and then brought back to council for review for them to make their final determination as we close out the final annual budget process.
Thank you very much. My final question is... No, I have two more. The increases proposed this year, does that mean there will be increases proposed for next year, and will those be available for us to look at within the next few months, or is that something we need to wait for until next financial year? Okay.
Again, did you want to answer that?
My final question is, given the new development of Smedley Place in Boynup has a proposed 47 new residential lots and the recent approval of the tiny home community within the Shire, are these homes included in the upcoming proposed budgets?
I invite the CEO to respond to that.
Hello, thank you for your question, Jessica. Not as yet. Not until they're developed and they get occupancy certificates and we get the information back through so we can register them through the rating system, so they won't be recognised in any of the numbers you see this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any more questions? There being no more questions from the audience here tonight, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Thank you. Item 4, declarations of interest. Is there any declarations of interest? No declarations of interest. Item 5, notice of items to be discussed behind closed doors. There's no notice of items to be discussed behind closed doors, so nil. And we have no petitions, deputations or preparations per item 6. We now move on to the reports. Item 9.1. The 26-27 draft annual budget, annual rating strategy, differential rates. That's detailed in the report and in the attachments, and there is a motion that says the council give local public notice in accordance with section 6.36 of the Local Government Act 1995 be given for the following Shire of Capel proposed differential rates for 26-27 financial year. There is a rate there that, as is indicated in the report, generally indicates a rating increase of 6% across all categories, with the exception of, would you care to qualify that, Madam CEO?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Want to read the rating, please?
Yep.
Yep.
Do I have a mover for the motion, please? Councillor Noonan, seconder. Councillor McCleary. Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'd like to thank the staff for preparing this motion. They've spent a lot of time looking at the both before last week and since last week, looking at the impact of various different percentages that could be proposed. I note that at the 6%, this will bring us in lower, once again, than the rate that Bunbury is proposing, that Bunbury is advertised for their ratepayers. I note that it leaves us with a shortfall of about 38,000 from the planned capital works that we had hoped to achieve. This can be covered, by running a deficit. So we can either remove items, defer items that we would have otherwise done, or we can draw on reserves to meet that shortfall. I'd like to once again reiterate the point that has been made several times tonight, because we keep getting the same question. Rates are a property tax. They're a tax on the wealth or the value of the property or the income generating capacity of a property. So it's not like an income tax on how much you earn. It's not like a consumption tax, goods and services tax. It's a property tax. It's not a poll tax. We don't tax people, put rates on, according to the number of people who live on a property. It's a tax on the value of the property. Now, my understanding or my argument or belief that if you're going to try and find equality or parity between different areas in a shire, $1 million house in Dalyella should pay approximately the same rates as $1 million house in Jalora, which should pay approximately the same rates as $1 million farm. I think that's fair and reasonable. Now, the services may well be different. In fact, definitely will be different. A house in Dalyella is much closer to the beach. They have more parks. They have more footpaths. They have street lighting. But their house is worth $1 million. My house in Jalora may well be worth $1 million. I don't have footpaths. I don't have street lighting. But I've got 5 to 10 times the amount of road frontage going past my property. I've got 100 metres worth of road, sealed road, in front of my house. So when it eventually comes around, in 20 or 30 years' time, that road needs to be resealed, it's going to cost at least 5 to 10 times as much to reseal the road in front of my place as it would that house in Dalyella. Similarly, a farm worth $1 million, or a hobby farm or a small farm worth $1 million, probably has more than 1 kilometre's worth of road. Now, that might be sealed, it might be gravel. Once again, when that eventually comes around to being either sealed or being graded, it's going to cost more for that one property than it would for the equivalent work being done, obviously, in Dalyella. So the point is, parity means that on a property tax, it means that if our properties are worth the same, roughly the same, we should be paying roughly the same. Because of the rating structure that we've got, rural residential has been subsidised by the residential areas of the Shire. Rural areas have been subsidised to an even greater extent by the residential areas of the Shire. Now, you could argue, well, I don't have the services. I don't get the footpaths and all of that sort of thing. It's not about the services that you get. It's about the choices that you make to live where you want to live. If you're not happy, you can... If I'm not happy...
5 minutes, do you want an extension? Do you need an extension?
Just 1 more minute, if I could, Mr. President. If I'm not happy with the services that I'm getting in rural residential, I can sell my property for $1 million. I can buy $1 million house in Dalyella, and I can have footpaths. I can have street lighting. Similar, vice versa, going the opposite way. What it's about is providing parity, providing a degree of equality for the rates take for the whole of the Shire, for every person in the Shire. Then we come to the program of works, where we take that bucket of money that we get from everybody in the Shire and we look at it and we say, what should we do with this? What should we do?
Councillor Noonan, you've had another minute. Do you want to seek an extension?
If I could, Mr. President.
Can someone move an extension for Councillor Noonan's time? Councillor Voyer's moved. And is a seconder? Councillor Sharp. I'll put those in favour. That's carried, 4-1. Councillor Cleary voted against. Councillor Noonan, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we get to the program of works. Okay, where are we going to spend this money? It doesn't make sense to build a library in Elgin. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense to build a sports facility, a football oval in Stratham, or a basketball court, in Stratham. So we have to be, simply because it's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. There are 47 children who live in Peppy Grove Beach. Now, those 47 kids, I've got absolutely no doubt, would love to have an oval, basketball courts, they'd love to have a gymnasium, they'd love to have a swimming pool. But it would make more sense to spend the money, the millions of dollars that it would require to build those sorts of facilities. It makes more sense to build those facilities or things like that in Dalyellup, where there are thousands of kids. So we have to accept, I believe, that we should accept that where I live, okay, determines the services that I'm willing to accept. And the good thing is that I've got a car, I've got a push bike. I'm quite happy to ride across the road from Julurup to Dalyellup to go to the library. I'm quite happy to ride across the road to go to the beach. When I have a birthday party, I'm going to celebrate it in the park at Dalyellup. And the good thing is I don't have to show a passport to get across there. I don't have to, I don't have to show any papers to do that. So I think that the council has tried, has certainly listened, heard the calls. The one final note that I would make, because this has been a threat that has been sort of hung over the council, 6230, let's go 6230. Joining Bunbury, I think last week we had 2 presentations from, and there've been articles in the paper about from various different Bunbury identities, looking at the commercial decision that Bunnings has made to investigate moving to Dalyellup. Very, very salutary comments and an insight into how Bunbury would regard Dalyellup and Julurup if they made the move. They would absolutely welcome us with open arms. And, the possibility of a bag full of sweets being proffered. However, it was very, very clear that the focus for Bunbury is the centre of Bunbury, within 5 kilometres of the CBD of Bunbury. That's where their main focus is. Dalyellup and Julurup would be treated like Siberia. I can promise you that. We would be harvested for rates.
I have to invite you to come to an end. You've had 10 minutes.
So we do need to be careful what we wish for. I think that the rates table that has been presented by the Shire officers is very fair, very equitable. I think, and I would hope that community members do have the opportunity to comment on it as it's advertised, and I'd encourage them to continue to do so, and I'd ask my fellow councillors to support that process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Newman. I do need to make an apology and a correction. When I called the vote for the extension of time, I said 4-1. It was actually 5-1, and that's been recorded by the Minute Secretary. Thank you. Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks to you, Councillor Noonan. This decision is ours. We've sat down for months with staff. We've been given the opportunity to get long-term financial plans, asset plans, condition assessment, all the things that we need to do over the coming years, not just this 1 year. This rate setting that we're doing now, whilst it's a draft one, it's based on the information that the people in the that have given us, they've come and asked questions. We've got those, we can take the knowledge of those forward in making our decision. But however, we've also heard from the executive officers. We seem to get stuck in talking about roads and footpaths. There's a whole gamut of things that the Shire does and has to fund. And that's the thing we need to keep in mind. We're all aware of it around this table, that we need to raise funds to do this. How we do it is set by the GRV and a tax. Just for instance, when I take the raw dollars of each one, rural residential cover 6% of the rate revenue. So does commercial, another 6%. Residential cover 73%. So anything you spend in the Shire is split out of that. And then rural, 14%. So we've got other charges that get added on there. So when you're thinking about this tonight, we look at this. This is a second attempt. It's a good outcome. And I commend this to you to vote for this, move forward as a draft. So when it comes back with further comment from the community, we have a decision.
Thank you, Councillor McCleary. And any speakers against? Councillor Hastie.
Look, I recognise the work undertaken by administration and in particular the CEO in preparing this budget, and I accept the Shire must remain financially sustainable. However, I was elected on a commitment to advocate for responsible rates and affordability for our community. I believe a 5.5% increase provides a better balance between maintaining services and recognising the financial pressures facing ratepayers. For that reason, I cannot support the proposed 6% increase. Thank you.
Just clarify that, Councillor Hastie. What are you proposing?
It wasn't a proposal, it was voting against the, maybe I was too premature, I'm not too sure.
Is it? Oh, okay. Thank you. Did you wish to speak any further on the matter?
No, I've stated that I'm against the 6%, so that's it.
Do I have any more speakers for? Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, and through the chair. Firstly, I'd like to thank everybody that has come in tonight. I'm very heartened to see that the community has shown an incredible amount of interest, as per last week. And you all know how our vote went last week, which is why we're back here this week. I have been a big advocate for community participation, and I've been a councillor now coming into my final year, and I have seen some very poor participation from the community when we're making really important decisions, which then come back and we have a lot of outcry about outcomes and what the Shire decide to move forward as a result of community consultation. I really was against the previous rate increase, and I am sitting on this in the affirmative because we do need to move forward and we do need to have an outcome tonight so we can go into the process of the draft annual budget and tabling these for endorsement. So we now come into a 21-day public comment period, and we also have got a couple of workshops coming up. I really want to encourage you all to still participate in this. Don't drop this ball. Please engage with your community and have a say, because as Councillor McCleary rightly said, we sit here and we make really important decisions, not just for your future, not just for the immediate year, but we're making decisions that are going out generations. And we want to do it right, but we feel we need more input from the community. So when we have meetings, let there be more than 3 people come to represent what we are trying to get out there. Make it, 50. It'd be really good. Thank you very much for all the work that's gone into all of these meetings that we've had so far, and that's addressed to the staff, but also in anticipation for a wonderful representation from our community and the passion that they feel for our region. I hope to see you there on the 2 dates that we've got coming up.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Any further speakers for or against? Then I'll take the opportunity to speak for the motion. I support and thank Councillor Noonan and Councillor McCleary for moving and seconding the motion, and I find great comfort in what Councillor Noonan has said about the broader issues in respect to that this is actually, it's a property tax. It's not a fee for service. Now, many of the questions that came in here this evening directed their particular inquiries towards the services they receive and what they pay. Let's reiterate it, it's not a fee for service. It is a property tax, and it is dispensed as equitably as the council can manage it across the entire Shire on a basis of needs. Now, I don't want to sound too heroic, but we do come in here and try very hard on behalf of the community, on behalf of the staff, and try and get it right. You can't do this stuff without money, unfortunately. We have to rate you. We have to get a tax on the property, and the word wealth has almost unfortunate connotations, but it is, in the Australian context, the reflection of people's individual wealth often. And so this is a commendable outcome based on the contribution that's come from the staff, from the councillors, and from the people who've made representations and asked the questions. As to the question about Bunbury, well, be careful what you wish for. That'd be my view. And I know it's not under consideration here today, but there does seem to be certain inquiry as to whether you'd be better off under Bunbury. Well, I think Councillor Noonan's hit the nail right on the head. What matters to Bunbury is a radius of 5 kilometres from the city centre. Would you think that if they in fact were in control of Jalorup and Dalyalup, that they'd have any particular objection to Bunnings? Well, other than for the property owners that own the current property in Bunbury, probably not. Because they would say, well, we're going to get that jewel in the crown anyway. So don't take much notice of that. The Shire of Capel has grown 285% since 2001. And that's a staggering figure. And I think, by and large, given that probably hit the existing council like a bulldozer, that they've done extraordinarily well to try and deliver the services and a competent local government. We have our moments, but by and large, having been a person of some, dare I say, worldly experience, I think the Shire of Capel does really, really well. And I think you should not walk out of this room feeling you won or you lost, that feeling that perhaps your affairs have been taken great note of, and the council has really given very serious consideration to your contribution and your points of view. This will go out to consultation if it's approved tonight, and then we'll see what happens with it when it comes back into council on that subsequent occasion. So I commend it, as does the mover and the seconder, and I seek support for this motion. Thank you. Now, we do invite, is there any other speakers against? No, right reply, Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to just echo the comments that Councillor Cleary, Councillor Sharp and you made, and in commending and congratulating the community who've turned out here tonight and who turned up last Wednesday to ask the questions that they did. We appreciate the feedback that you've given us. I think that this is a good outcome, and I think we should put it to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Noonan. Those in favour, please raise your right hand. It's Councillor Boyers, Councillor McCleary, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Sharp and Councillor Noonan. Those against? Councillor Hasty, that's carried by absolute majority, so it does now come into effect as the exhibited document for the rate proposal. Thank you for your attendance. Now, we now move to the option of public question time, item 10. Is there any questions from the public?
Just one.
No, but please address the podium.
Yay. Justin Raby, 146 Jules Road in Jallora. All I really want to know is, now that this has been voted on, what's the next part of the process when it comes to public consultation?
Make sure you get the accurate answer and invite the CEO to respond to that.
Thank you. CEO, thank you.
Hello, thank you. What was your name, sorry?
Justin Raby.
Justin, thank you. Okay, so basically now this has been endorsed at council. Over the next few days, the notice of intention to levy differential rates, so the notice that was advertised tonight, will be advertised on the Shire's website, public notice boards, public library, in the newspaper, advertised online. There's various forms of media we have to publicise this to our residents. You've got 21 days to write a submission, and in the notice it tells you how to submit the submission. Basically put something in writing, addressed to the CEO by the deadline. It comes through to me, I review it, and then I basically copy and paste the information from your submission into a submission table, verbatim. We don't change any information in there. And then the council gets to read those prior to the next council meeting.
Right, so we've got 21 days, and after that it comes to council, is that right? Okay, thanks very much.
Yes, through the President.
Councillor Host, are you raising a point of order?
No.
Because we're not speaking to a motion.
I'm not speaking to a motion.
We've moved on to public question time.
I just wanted to know, is it 21 days working days or 21 days full stop? Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions from the public? That being the case, I'll declare the meeting closed at 7:12. And thank you. Thank you, residents and ratepayers. Thank you, staff, and thank you, councillors, for your contribution.